Hello and welcome to the Happy Slappy. I was gonna say a different word, and I'm so glad I held back. Um, we are brought to you by Gibby.
Happy Slappy Town.
Wait, Happy Slappy Town.
No, please no.
Um,
Hello and welcome to
yeah,
the we don't have a title.
hello and welcome to We Don't Have a Title. Maybe we'll edit one in post.
Okay, I'm gonna be like, hi, welcome to, and then in post you just put in whatever title we come up with. Okay.
Whoa,
Okay, but you but
fabulous.
you but you also leave this part in, so it's funny.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Hello and welcome to.
Slapendipity, hobos of Happy Slappy Town.
My name is Devin, or you can call me Gibby, and I am here with my co-host,
Eric.
who you can call Eric.
That's about it.
So Eric,
I have been
give me
called other name.
what have you been called?
E-Money. And Rick. I don't like that one though. My name's not Rick. That's about it.
Okay, so E-Money, do you want to go and tell the audience what the conceit of this podcast is?
Well, I'm your friend, Mr. Gibby Devon.
Mm-hmm.
And we've known each other for goodness, like at least maybe 15 years.
I think like
I think if
2009. So yeah, 15, 16 years.
then as yeah. And we're just gonna, we got that vibe, we got that good juju, and we're just gonna bring our good juju to the rest of the world. Talk about our lives and stories and feelings, a little bit of open group therapy, maybe.
Yeah, so
That's the comment section.
me and Eric are residents of Happy Slappy Juju Town, and so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be telling you about the goings on in our little town here, and that's going to include our personal lives, our professional desires and dreams and wishes, and whatever thoughts happen to cross our mind. So, for example, I have a story I'm going to tell about what happened immediately preceding the recording of this podcast. For reference,
All about it.
this is our first episode. We don't know what we're doing. We don't have a title, except for the title you heard back in the beginning. That's our title now. But that's in the future. We haven't heard
Might
that
be
part yet.
Happy Slappy Good
Happy,
Town
happy
Juju.
Slappy Juju Town. So we were going to get ready. We're like, okay, 2:40-ish, 2:45, that's when we're going to get on the call. It is 3:45. What happened? Well, what happened is I went down to my local pharmacy. It's called Happy Slappy Drugstore. And I went in to pick up my prescription medication. And they said, okay, buddy, this is going to cost you $340. And keep in mind,
Damn.
it usually costs like 15 to 20. Sometimes it's more if they give me like a 3-month supply. But he's like, hey, buddy, it's going to be $300. Now, this guy who I was talking to, I don't know his name. I'm going to call him Mike. Mike is a new pharmacist. I have never seen him there before. I'm thinking maybe he typed in the wrong thing. Maybe he got my name wrong. I spelled my name for him. Maybe he doesn't speak letters. I'm like, hey, buddy, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, we don't have any of your insurance on file. Now, as you may know, it is currently the month of February. Back on January 1st, my insurance, it changed provider, making me thinking, Misa thinking that mayhaps when that happened, the new insurance information did not get switched over to my pharmacy. Meaning that I am walking into Happy Slappy Drugstore. They think I'm just some bozo without insurance, and they're going to charge me $300 for my medication. So that's something that now I need to work out. And it's unfortunate because today is Monday, and I only get 2 days off a week, and those days are Sunday, when the pharmacy is open for like 35 seconds while the pharmacist is like in between bites of their ham sandwich, and then Monday, which is today. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get this all handled today, meaning I'm going to have to wait till like next Monday when I have a day off to figure things out. And that's a tragedy. And you want to know why that's a tragedy?
Tell me why.
I'll tell you why it's a tragedy. It's because I don't have my medication. I will not be happy slappy here in drugstore. I will be satty flatty.
You'll be sappy dappy. That's no good. Part of me wants to be like, well, we can always podcast another hour, but if it's so much work that you can't even like get it all before they close, a podcast might just be the thing to help you out.
Podcasts are the new therapy. Unironically, I have found myself in the last 10 years or so, yeah, probably a little under 10 years, where if I'm ever alone with my thoughts, I start having what are called memories or ideas, and these are scary things that I don't want to have. I just want to be
dangerous.
I want to be a good little ghost piloting my meat mech, walking around, not a single thought in my head. And so in order to remedy this thing that we call consciousness, I will constantly be listening to podcasts, YouTube videos, audiobooks, things like that.
Sure.
You could call podcasts the opium of the masses.
We can workshop it. I want something a little that rolls off the tongue better, but
So that's a phrase that was first used to describe religion.
Oh.
So in other words, I believe ideally that we'll have religious. We can discuss the religious implications of Happy Slappy Town. Like, we don't have a church in town. We have a Happy Slappy Pod Bean.
Religion didn't do me much good anyway, so it's fine.
You know what else sucks about Mondays?
Yeah, okay.
You know what else sucks about Mondays?
Tell me, Garfield.
So there's very few things that I enjoy doing in this world, but one of those things is going thrifting. Now we got a local thrift store here in Happy Slappy, the Happy Slappy thrift store, and there's 2 days of the week when they're closed. Sunday, because that's the Lord's Day, Lord Bean.
Right, yeah, the rest.
Yes, Lord Bean. And then Monday, and I don't know why they're closed on Monday, but they are. Meaning, as previously discussed, my 2 days of the week that I have off work, Sunday, Monday, I cannot go to our local thrift store because it's closed. This has cut off a major avenue of my life from me.
Joy and fulfillment.
Like, imagine if you're living in the movie Ready Player One, where they're like, hey, you can't go into the metaverse on Tuesdays, but Tuesday's your only day off of work. And now you're just kind of sitting at home and you can't play video games. That's what it feels like, but this is real life, by which I mean it's Happy Slappyville, and I can't go thrifting.
You should talk to management and change your day off from, like, Sunday or Monday.
No.
So you get, like, a Tuesday off. Or get a third day off.
I'm thinking more, at this point, I'm going to get 7 days off, if you know what I mean.
Oh.
I'm going to become the unemployed, uninsured hobo that Mike, the guy at the Happy Slappy drugstore, thinks I am.
Hey man, it all comes full circle, You weren't what he thought you were as at the time, but he knew your future. And maybe I should see him for my own divination reasons.
Can he see the future? Or am I simply like, I'm like a piece of garbage and then you move the garbage and there's like a diamond underneath? Is it that kind of situation? Hey buddy, I do actually have insurance.
Oh, it could be, but I mean, if you're not going to see, I mean, it could be both. It could be both, really. I don't want to doubt Mike's potential properties,
Wait.
But you are a diamond in the rough, yeah.
I just said Mike, the guy whose name I don't know, who works at the drugstore. I said he was new. I think he owned the fortune teller place down the street that just went out of business.
Are you serious?
Do you think he saw that coming?
I mean, maybe.
He may have, like.
I mean, that. I could see it.
He may have.
That is.
he may have foreseen that his building would be foreclosed on, and so he had to go and get a new career.
Right. But he still has like the old habits from his previous employment. He's like, I'm not gonna put these to waste.
Do you think if
I gotta trip up the people that come in here.
if you
I gotta let them know.
I have to hand them a drug and be like, "Hey, buddy, this is going to give you a major tummy ache. You might want to go to aisle 4 and pick up some Alka-Seltzer while you're here."
That is the way to use those powers for good.
So speaking of
evil, and in small ways.
speaking of using things for good and not evil, and diamonds in the rough. So on one of the rare opportunities, I was able to go to our local Goodwill, which is not actually what it's called, but I forget the term. Thrift store. That's the word.
Happy Slappy.
Have you
Happy
ever
Slappy, Happy Slappy Thrifting.
Happy Slappy Thrifting?
Yeah.
I don't know what your personal history with thrift stores or secondhand stores or anything like that is, but while walking through them, I have very often had the thought that there might in fact be what I'm going to colloquially refer to as a cursed item. Now that could be cursed in terms of like actually something that's literally haunted, or what we might call a cursed image, like on the internet.
Sure.
Like you see those pictures of I'm not gonna be able to think of a single example.
It's okay. I believe in you. Take your time. No one's in a rush. We're using this as a diversion from our real lives.
Like you see any pictures of people cosplaying The Simpsons, and you're like, oh, that does not work. Please get this out of my head. So I was walking through a thrift store one time, and there was what I'm going to call like the preschool section, the kindergarten section. And there was an off-brand like Squishmallow of Olaf from Frozen. Like not a pillow pet, not a Squishmallow, but it was a big plushy pillow thing. And it was just like stained. It was just like trashed. It was just like gross and not quite brown, not quite like, oh, this was definitely in a dumpster, but definitely it had seen some rough things. And I think if anything's going to be cursed, it's going to necessarily be a child object. And so that makes me wonder, first of all, what is the thought process behind the employee who put this on the shelf when it is so, for 25 cents, when it is so clearly garbage? And secondly, what kind of disease or curse would I get if I brought it home? So I guess I'm asking you if you've ever had scenarios or situations where you've been in any sort of secondhand shop.
Well, first of all, I'd say you'd get like a malaria or something if you brought it home. As for my own personal happy slappy thrifting experiences, I don't actually thrift that much. I've been a few times with like friends or family. But it's always just like that, like the usual junk, clothes, or not junk, but like, I mean, junk and treasure, you know, eye of the beholder. You know, like clothes, record players, vinyls, VCRs, VHS, a lot of old stuff, which I feel like every thrift store has, but nothing cursed, nothing where I was like, oh, I'm gonna get a disease if I bring this back to my home.
So you thankfully used the magic word that I was looking for. Now, folks at home, sitting at home, listening at home, driving at home, working at home, we have a Google Doc that I've not shared with Eric, meaning that we don't have it, I have it. And it's full of show notes, which is just little thoughts and ideas that I have written down that I want to discuss on the show. And number 1 on that list is, do humans have innate desire for treasure, ? For example, antiquing flea markets and thrift stores. And so, Eric, you just used the word treasure, which is exactly what I was looking for.
Hey, man. Same hat.
I personally think that there is some animal instinct to gather shiny things or things with history. I think this goes back to when we were penguins and we used to give each other little pebbles to get married. And now we still give each other little pebbles to get married, but it's really only like a ceremonial thing. It's not really part of our religion anymore. So I think that part of our attitude of going to these thrift stores and looking for things, or even like garage sales, or online shopping is we think that we're looking for some sort of mysterious treasure. We think we're going to walk into like the secondhand store from the Lego Ninjago movie, which I'm sure is a reference that everybody at home will understand. And I think we're going to find some sort of magical or cursed object. And so I'm wondering, first of all, people at home, is this something you've experienced? Do you like treasure hunting? Do you find little ornate glass beavers and you think, hey, I want that beaver? And then secondly, Eric, what is your opinion on treasure?
Okay. Um, well, it's a super quick side note. I was walking my dogs earlier today, and as I was walking through Happy Slappy Town, I saw a man with a metal detector. I think he was like looking for like nails or something. Like he was clearly part of like a construction thing, and I think maybe they lost some like hardware on the floor, but maybe he was looking for treasure. That aside, I think there is something about treasure that we still have in our lizard brain. Right? If you look at crows as an example, they love gathering random objects that they find pretty or cool or whatever. And even in our fiction, right? Number one fictional thing that collects dragons.
Hmm.
And we just made that up, probably.
We
Probably.
we as a species or a culture invented this mythological being that is a mixture of like all these terrifying things. It is fire, it is snakes, it is big thing that can eat us, and we also gave it the
Yeah,
quality of collecting things. So do you think that we
right.
actually
Because
have an innate fear of giant collections of nerds who collect things?
no. I think the giant collecting thing is a way to empathize and humanize the dragon, right? Because so often we're like, yeah, Princess Dragon Knight combo, rock, paper, scissors style. And really, the dragon hoarding, most of the time it's gold, but I've seen a lot of interpretations over the course of life, and I think it's a way to, maybe show that every creature, even fictitious ones, have a certain amount of, you know, humanity, I suppose, to them, or that we're all from that same initial fish fucker that crawled onto land. And I think people do like collecting things, like the amount of like going onto any social media app and like seeing inevitably, no matter who you follow, a picture of like this is my Lego collection, or this is my sword collection, or this is my football collection. And some things we collect, but we don't call it a collection. We just call it an attribution of knowledge. A scientist, for example, may have a minimalist lifestyle and be very logical, and it throws out anything that they don't need for their practical daily life use. But then you ask them, well, based on the curvature of the Earth and the location of the sun, where's the best viewing for the solar eclipse in April going to be? And they'll be like, hey, man, head on down to Cleveland, maybe it's Pennsylvania. And they'll just tell you off the bat like that. And, that amount of knowledge that they have, while impressive, and the lifestyle that they lead to, not uh, clutter their house, perhaps, for whatever their justification is, still have a huge collection of knowledge that, they just is all in their head.
So do you think
Much
that
like language with words.
so do you think that the desire to acquire trivial knowledge or like knowledge that would be useful in trivia is the same aspect of our personality or part of our brain that also desires to collect things like Lego sets or dolls or video games or footballs? Like, do you think that the desire to, oh, I need to learn how far away Cleveland is from San Francisco in miles, is that the same kind of thing?
personalities play such a huge factor into so many different things. I think uh, if you actually talk to those people, they'd like, you know, give whatever reason. I think ultimately, yes. I think there is a human desire innate in all humans to be like, and I don't want to like, again, I think this is like we're kind of born with it. And so, but I don't want to get social and societal about it, of like, we want to be useful or be able to make contributions in some capacity to the rest of our group. And for perhaps even just our own fun. I think someone who like studies all the Snappletop facts or like questions on Jeopardy is trying to amass a collection of knowledge and be proud of it in a way similar that someone collecting Legos would take pride in their set and their limited edition, you know, specific Lego set.
Specifically
I don't know.
Legos. So I have actually never thought of that before. I'm currently in the process of making a video that you're actually involved in. I forgot about that part. A video about the history of collections and collectibles. I forgot that you voiced a character in that because I've been working on it for like 2 years. And
Amen.
so in my research, I went back and I looked at, especially post World War II, there was this big boom in like knickknacks and like foreign objects. People who were like, especially American soldiers who were like stationed in the East, who they come home and they brought back like, what we now call like China, like fancy dishes or just like weird things that are Oriental. And so they became nostalgic for their time overseas, or other people who didn't go and fight in the war saw this influx of these like these personal or handmade items from stores and shops and villages, in Asia, and they became objects of desire. And so that really led to the what I'm going to call the chotsky, the little desire to buy little knickknacks and nonsense. But going back even further than that, the desire to have like objects that have historical value that are then tied to some sort of like metaphysical value really came into practice, especially in like Europe with Catholicism, and this idea that like when a saint dies, we should like take their finger bone and preserve it, and then people come and they pray to the finger bone, and those are called like relics. Parts of saints are called relics, and the idea is like, for whatever reason, this thing in front of us that is literally just identical to other human finger bones is magical for some reason. And so therefore, you can trace that to today, where you're like, oh my god, this limited edition Charizard card is magical for some reason because there's so few of them. It's a direct line, I promise.
I could maybe see it. I think if you wanted to also stretch it back even further, I would say there was a certain amount of like, really back in the day when people like physical objects were very rare, I suppose. Like we hadn't begun crafting really. I would imagine, and I could be totally BSing, but like warriors collecting scars is what I think of like, each scar is a story and tells a tale of a place in their life. And I could see warriors being like, yeah, man, I got like 15 scars on my body and they're all sick. And another warrior being like, oh, man, you're so cool. I only have 3 scars because I just started out.
Okay, so do you think that in essence, the desire that we are fulfilling when we have collections is that we have physical embodiments of stories? So like the same way that a scar on a warrior's body is like, oh, this is the story of when I got this scar, I was in this battle. Or the physical, China that this random soldier got in the Pacific fighting in World War II reminds him of a story from his past. Or, looking around my house, I got this Lego set of Darth Vader's helmet, and when I look at it, I'm like, hey, when I was 7 and I watched Star Wars for the first time on VHS in my living room, I really liked that Darth Vader guy. Like, do you think that all we're doing is sort of physically preserving memories in objects that we desire to collect?
I think that could be a great deal of it. I do think there is a certain amount of like having a physical embodiment of a time and a place and like being able to use that to as a catalyst for like retelling a story or like remembering for your own self. The interesting thing for me in my own life with collecting is I don't know what I'm doing with it. So I, in like, gosh, 2012, I don't know, went to Comic-Con for the first time in New York, like the biggin, and I was, dazzled in the Comic-Con because of all the nerd stuff and the people in cosplay and the vendors, and one vendor was selling swords.
Oof.
Katanas specifically. And I was
Oof.
like, oh, that's so cool. So I bought one for $60. Couldn't do that again now. Swords are so much more expensive. And it's like a high carbon steel. It actually cut. Came with a sheath and everything. And I was like, yes. And from then on, I was like, well, I'm going to collect swords. And like, I'll collect a sword from each major region of the world. And then I'll like get into more specific regions and like see the variations and delineations on swords. So I have like please, I might butcher pronunciations. A kinjal from Russian area of the world, an American Revolutionary sword, I mean, I have some like nerd swords like the Master Sword because, represent your people. And I'm a cutlass, I believe, from like a pirate time. I kind of stopped and I was like, eh, eh, I don't know. It's something about it was like, I mean, partially because I'm running out of wall space and to like actually display all of them would be a chore if I got more. But then I was like, well, I'll start buying manga, which are Japanese comics. They're in black and white, so they're a lot thicker than their American comic counterparts and a lot more book-esque in like publishing. But like, there's a lot of cool stories out there, and I was like, well, I'll just buy some and read them. And so now I have a bookshelf for them because I bought that many that they needed their own physical space because my closet was getting full up. And I was like, this is good and fun. But I'm started getting again, like I did with swords, of like, I'm still going to at least finish the sets of the series that I have been reading. But part of the struggle is like, for me at least now with manga, of like, well, I can just read them online. And once I finish a story, I usually don't go back to it because I know the plot. And like once you know the like you know the story, like who cares? So now, huh?
I don't want to cut you off. You continue.
Oh no. Well, no. And so now, like, my brother is really into plush, so I was like, oh, I'll give plush one more chance. And so I got 2 Squishmallows for the recent holiday of Christmas that has somewhat recently passed. But then I was like, I'm fine with 2. I don't need any more. Like, it's where are my cats gonna sleep if they're not sleeping next to me? The Squishmallows have taken their spots. Now I'm just kind of in like a weird limbo state with collection, except for one. I remember. So before swords, it was like necklaces, because you could buy a necklace from like any con a lot easier than you could a sword. I stopped that when I broke up with my ex from back in the day,
Oof.
and I, the entire time though, have been collecting pins, and it's a very casual collection of just like like whenever I go to a place, if I find a pin, I get a pin. If I don't find a pin, then whatever. Um, and I just like I have a lamp, and I just stick the pins through the lamp on
Ooh.
the lampshade.
That's actually really cool.
And thank you. And that is the most consistent collection I have. And I think partially it is because like it's a very big lamp, and so the lamp shade is very big. And I think it's just because like I know I'm not running out of space anytime soon. Gosh, I lost the thread a little bit. That's my experience with collecting.
So I also at one point had a sword collection. It was actually like a combined collection between me and my brothers. I think it started, my older brother somehow obtained just like, I don't think it was like a replica of anything. I don't think it was like anything fancy. It was just like this big, really cool, thick, nice sword. And I think he didn't
Hmm.
have anything or couldn't afford to get me anything for my birthday. So he's like, here, have a sword. I'm like, wow, this is really cool. And then over the time, going to, again, these thrift stores or online or whatever, it was this like, oh my God, they have a sword. Let's get a sword and put it on the sword wall. We found this like
Yeah.
knight's helmet that's actually an ice cooler. I'm like, oh my God, we'll put it in front of the swords. And we had this giant, nice sword wall in our old house in our basement. And then when we moved, it all like the swords are currently just in a giant bucket somewhere. But the reason that they're in a bucket is because, just like you were saying, there's nowhere to display them. I don't have a giant wall I can just dangle swords from. They're impractical to
Yeah.
like put up anywhere. I've had to, in recent years, very much focus on like, what can I realistically put up to display? And like, if let's say I want to display my entire fandom of like Harry Potter, it's like, okay, how do I do that in a way that gets through my entire experience and like what I want to see without just having every single little piece of merchandise I have with the logo on it visible. And so my sort of
Hmm.
like conclusion to that is first of all, let me tell you, not only do I like Lego, and not only have I liked it since I was a kid, but the fact that three of the biggest Lego themes are Star Wars, Harry Potter, and Marvel. Like, oh my God, I am the
Well,
most stereotypical nerd of all time, and that's like all three of my major fandoms. So that's easy enough to do. But like as far as I'm concerned, just having there's this poster that I've had since I was a little kid. It used to hang in our library back when the first book came out, and they did a little raffle, and they're like, put your name in a hat, and we'll pick it out, and whoever gets it gets the poster. And so like that's now hanging on my wall, and it's a very cool poster. It's actually in the shape of like a banner, like that they would have had in Hogwarts. And I'm like, you know
oh,
what?
that's
That
cool.
is realistically that is all I need. I don't need to have like a million things sitting around. But I do continually run into the problem of like, okay, I have this thing. I don't want it to just be in a box, so I got to put it on a wall. But then I ran out of
Hmm.
wall. My office, my
Yeah.
studio where I film my videos, literally every square inch almost of the walls is filled up with like stuff, including one of my swords. I actually have a sword of Gryffindor, which I guess is both a sword and also a Harry Potter thing. You see how I connected
Hmm.
those together in my expert my expert
Collecting.
planning skills.
Oh yeah. 10 out of 10 foresight.
Thank you. Foreshadowing. So I guess I really like your pin lamp thing, not only because it's something small you can get, not only because pins are universal and you can get them both for like, oh man, I'm going to travel, I'm going to get one from this destination, but also like, oh my God, I love Kingdom Hearts, I'm going to get a Kingdom Hearts pin, and then you can put them on your lamp. And then if you run out of lamp, somewhere in the future of your life, you will have another lamp. And like that's just very cool. I'm very that seems like a very personal thing for you, and I'm very like proud and happy that like wow, Eric has this really cool collection I didn't know about.
Oh, thanks. You know, lamp. Lamp. It just came to me one day. I think there is also like a certain amount of, as you were saying, like pins are really easy. and like they're really small. They travel well. They can also be friggin' anything.
Mm.
I recently came back from Savannah and wasn't per se gonna get a pin, but I stopped in the museum, the Grave Face Museum in Savannah. It's very cool. You should check it out. But so as I was, you could like pay $20 as the normal admissions fee, or you could pay $50 and get like a gift bag at the end. So I paid the $50 to get the little gift bag at the end. And you got like a shirt, a pin, a sticker, and then general admission. And so for the pin, I was like really struggling because they had like easily maybe 2 dozen
Oof.
different pins. And I was just like, and I was trying to look at all of them. And the lady at the desk was like, oh, I had recently been talking to the owner of the museum. She gives the last tour, and I was like talking to her about some questions earlier. And so the lady at the desk, as I'm looking at all these pins, is like points at this little one down in the corner, and it's a little ghost holding a little bunny. And it's like, the owner of the store actually has this tattooed on her, so if you want to match with her, like, you could get this pin. And I was like, that's a cute little, I will, thank you. That is my recent addition to my lamp, and like, now that's a quirky, cool little thing. But then also, like, I, as you somewhat alluded to, have just like Kingdom Heart pins up there, and like, truly anyone with enough time digging into it, like, pins are so easy to make. It's like, I think the go-to item to collect, because they're almost ideal for it. And because even if you don't have a lamp, you can get a cork board, and you know you're good to go. And it'll take you, unless you're like really really collecting them, like, you won't run out of space for quite a while.
Yeah, I got this little shadow box thing from Amazon. It was not that expensive to put pins in. I've never really collected them, but if you buy as many Pokemon cards as I do, then you end up with a lot of like special pin collections. And I was like, I should probably put these somewhere, and so I put them in a little shadow box. But I really, really love that tattoo story because like I feel like from now on that pin will not only be a symbol of the vacation that you went on and also that specific museum, but also you'll just like if it was me, I'd look at it and I'd be like, wow, I wonder what that lady is doing right now. I could just go down the street and like I could just ask Mike the psychic who's working at my local pharmacy,
Happy Slappy drugstore.
Happy Slappy drugstore, but like it's still like this is something that's physically like on her body, and so like it's at one specific person, it's the museum, it's the vacation, like it's so many things, and that's sort of this attachment that I have to physical objects that like remind me of things.
Yeah, yeah, they're magical. You know, from my few psychology classes that I've taken throughout high school and college, number one sense to for memories and like recalling is olfactory, your sense of smell. Um, if I had to put money on it, though, I don't know number two, but touch is probably up
Mm.
there. Or like, um, like something you can hold and be like, oh yes, this is my little knick-knack paddywhack of, this place and time, and it's mine, and it, resonates with you personally.
So what I'm hearing is that if we were ever going to go into the business of creating knickknacks or pins or anything, and we were going to like shop ourselves around and be like, hey buddy, like your little store should carry our stuff, then the truest, most ideal form of collectible would be a scratch and sniff sticker, right?
I think we should be revolutionaries. I think it should be a scratch and sniff sticker that is kind of like a three, like, like, obviously it's a 3D object, but like it's like a sheet of paper. I think we should make them deeper so that it's like kind of like a box for like a ring, you know? And like the more you scratch it, you know, it sniffs, but then you can start tearing away at it until you reveal a pin.
Or, like, do you think that we could just put the technology for a scratch and sniff sticker on the surface of a pin? So, like, it still has a metal backing. Is this a
I
thing? This has got to be a thing.
I feel like I've heard it.
Oh my
I
god,
don't know if it is.
it absolutely is. There's Disney ones. Disneyland
Oh
2020
my
sent there's Stitch from Lilo and Stitch, and they called them Stitch. Jesus, I can't even say this. Stitch sent scratch, scratch and sniff
got this.
Stitch. Send Stitch scratch and sniff. A lot of S's.
It's okay.
So yeah, no, they got strawberry ones based on like Toy Story. Okay, so this is a thing that Disney has beat us to, and now I'm sad.
Okay.
But if we were,
Hey.
I think if for Happy Slappy Town our like mayor were to make a pin, I think that it should have to be scratch and sniff.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's you can be disheartened that Disney beat us to it, but if it's only Disney that beat us to it, I mean, if someone's got to beat you, and it's got to be Disney, like they're #1 top dog. We were close. We were close.
I think aiming for second
You
place.
also said it was like, yeah.
I think aiming for second place if first place is Disney is still pretty good.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, or what I tried to say if I wasn't clear. You also, because I believe you said it was 2020,
Mm-hmm.
which like recently beat us to it. Like they're lucky we are procrastinators and we didn't do this 4 years sooner, because you know they would have been in for a rough time.
It's also very possible. So it looks like these were sold in Disneyland in the parks. It's very possible that they're stupid rare because like Disneyland wasn't open during COVID. So maybe like even if they made these, maybe they're just gonna pretend like Disney corporate's gonna be like, oh, these didn't sell well, and then like forget that it's because the parks closed down, and then they won't manufacture anymore, and then we can just swoop in and do it ourselves.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. What a
Alright.
potential little piece of wonder that could be.
I absolutely think that backtracking to when we were talking about the lamp, I think right before you transition that into your story about the museum, you need to like right now you should say it, and we should insert it back then. You should say like, I needed somewhere to put my pins, and then I turned my lamp on, and like the light bulb turned on, and I got an idea to put them on my lamp, like some sort of pun about the light bulb turning on.
Oh no!
I think you need to say that, and then we insert it back then and pretend that you said it back then.
And I'm keeping this as genuine to the article as can be.
Okay.
People will hear this and they'll be like, Devin's he's trying to lie to us. Eric is the good one. He wants us to know the truth.
Okay. All right, fam, now is when we would do any letters from our viewers, but we don't happen to have any of those right now. So instead, we're just going to take a little break. We're going to play a jingle, and then we're going to be right back. So thank you for sticking with us, and we'll be right back with the
Slapendipity, hobos of Happy Slappy Town.
Hey folks, welcome back from our little to-do to Happy Slappy Town. And hope you're ready for your fresh live pre-recording.
So I want to go back to something we were talking about a little earlier. We were talking about the history of dragons and knights and princesses. And Eric, you made a comment, and you said that the dragon and the princess and the knight were kind of like rock, paper, scissors.
Yes.
And I can see how the dragon beats the princess by trapping her, and I can see how the knight beats the dragon when he slays the dragon.
Uh-huh.
How does in your version of rock, paper, scissors, how does the princess beat the knight?
So I didn't She's just a strong, independent woman, and she don't need no man. She can choose the man if she would like to. She's a princess, so her father's the king. So then she's just like, "Hey, yo, pops, whatever I want to do with this night is what you're gonna make happen." And the king's like, "Yeah, okay."
So she
With the
uses
exception
her.
of whatever deal the king made to, for the night.
So she
I mean,
she
ew,
exercises her political power over the knight to beat it, and the knight stabs the dragon, and the dragon kidnaps the princess, and that is our canon version of rock paper scissors.
yes, there is. I feel like the obvious one is too potentially sexist of like, the princess then marries the knight and then haha, chain and balls. But that's such a gross way of viewing marriage. You should marry someone you love and you should work together as a team.
To slay a dragon, I
I guess
agree.
it could, yeah.
All right, so Eric, I believe that you were talking about your trip down to Savannah. Do you have any more stories from this little vacation out of Happy Slappy Town that you would like to tell?
I mean, the question isn't do I have stories? It's which story do you want to hear?
What are my options?
Um, you can have me doing a pub crawl. You can
Ooh,
have me meeting an artist. You can have me getting introspective because of a comic book.
I think I would love right now to hear the story about meeting the artist.
So meeting the artist is maybe the shortest one.
Excellent. Let's
um,
begin.
so I went down to Savannah, Georgia. Lovely little place. Apparently, number two, or no, sorry. I think it's number one travel destination for bachelorette parties. And I think it's in like top 10, possibly number two, depending on what, site or whatever you use for travel destinations in general. I went there because bachelorette party things were happening and I was driving someone down and we drove like 10 hours at least to get there. So I have a van that I can live in. So I parked my van that I can live in into a secluded little area and I slept, and that was my Friday night. So Saturday morning, I wake up and there is a park, pardon the pronunciation, I believe it's Forsyth, perhaps Forsyth, I don't know. I believe it's Forsyth. There might be an N in there. It might be for synth. Anyway, not the point. Big park, and it's like one of the big to dos. And I was like, okay, I'll go there. And I go into the park, and it is like, and because it's the weekend, they don't do this all the time, as far as I know. There is a big like farmers market slash like vendors market. Like there's a farmers market. We all know what a farmers market is, hopefully. And if you don't know, like the local community, like they sell their meat or vegetables or honey or baked goods or lemonade. And you like go around the area and you like buy whatever you want. They, in conjunction to that, had like vendors market, I will call it, because if you ever have gone to like like an artist alley or an artist market, it's basically like that. Very similar premise with the food market, but instead it's people selling their art, their books, people doing angel readings or tarot readings, people like with their handmade bags, like truly whatever the person was selling. Um, I did get an angel reading, thank you very much, and the angel said I was the poster child of putting in the work on myself. So
I know what I know what a tarot reading is. I actually have a side story. I've recently been doing a lot of those. I've never heard of an angel, whatever you just said.
so I asked the lady this because I was like, is an angel reading just a different flavor of tarot reading? Because I had never heard of it. And she was like, yeah, kind of, basically. A tarot reading, and this was more or less her phrasing of it. I am just working off of her definition, and it's been about a week since then, so bear with me for all those divination connoisseurs. So tarot reading is kind of like getting like a vibes check from like the universe or like the energy. Angel reading is like specifically trying to ask a higher being for, a divination request. So, if your tarot reading is like checking in with the vibes and energy around you to see how, XYZ thing will go. Angel reading is like trying to tap on St. Peter's shoulder or God or Buddha or whomstever and being like, hey man, can you give me a little sneak peek? So that was cool. That was fun. Yes.
What did the angel say? You were the poster
So
child?
the angel, I am a poster child. I humble brag. I guess diviner is what I would call her. Was very stumped by me. I had a lot of nothing happening basically. She used a multitude of different decks, and she didn't go into in-depth explanations for each of them. But from what I could tell, there was her initial pull. I did not get a good look at. I don't know what happened. Then she put that deck away. She got 3 water cards from what I'm assuming was an elemental deck. And then she used 2 other decks for which had a lot of masculine and feminine energy. Like, can you tell me what sign you are? Are you a water sign? And I was like, no, I'm an air sign. And she was getting, that explains all of it. It all makes so much sense now.
Of course.
So the 3 water signs she had pulled was again, she didn't give too depth of an explanation, so bear with for those more experienced than I. But waters care a lot and very deeply about people or things. She was asking me if I was supposed to meet up with anyone, and I was like, no, not really. Maybe I'll run into, the people that I drove down to this location, but no, I don't have any concrete plans to meet anyone. She was like, okay. And then I told her air sign. She was like, oh, it's not that you don't care deeply about these people, you do, but you also roll with the punches of whatever happens, be it good or bad. That was the most in-depth she went to on that. And for the masculine, feminine, she didn't really touch on, but she was like, when I close my eyes and I see you, I see you as a silhouette, and you're more of a beacon. Because a lot of this is part of me is haha, tarot, angel readings, haha, it's fun, quirky things to do because I'm bored.
Indeed.
And it's whatever. But she was like, she was like, oh, I see you as this beacon to that attracts other things. And so naturally from I think it was 15 minutes.
You thought she was
$10
hitting on you.
or $10 for 15 minutes? No.
But she's saying that you're attractive.
In the same way that the proton and electron are, I suppose. But so over the course of this 10 to 15 minute period, there were various dog activity. There was 2 dogs that kind of did a low-key tussle. They were both on a leash, so they were quickly took apart from each other. There was a different dog a few minutes later that was doing whatever, but being a little bit noisy literally behind her as she's looking at me. It was drizzling when we began the session, and by the time it finished, it ended. Just a lot of little things like that of well, yeah. But she was like, you like what the cards are telling me is that like there is no big problem coming to you or anything. Like you don't need to prepare for anything. You're safe, you're fine. But even if something minor did happen, I'm not sure you would view it as a problem so much as another way to like see, a perspective or a new light or whatever. And she was like, you're like, you put in the work. You are like the poster child for like, I've worked on myself and I have been in therapy for like 8 years or whatever. So it was slightly gratifying, although it is a little bit of like, I don't want to sound like a dick about it. A Richard about it. I'm so sorry. We don't use that language in Happy Slappy Fun Time.
You said the F word earlier. I think it's fine.
Oh no! I'm gonna have to go back and take them out with a cold, hard practice. But yeah, like that was just a fun, reassuring time of like, cool, cool. That was not the artist though.
Oh yeah, great story about an artist.
So the artist, I mean, it depends on how in depth you want to get into this, but sticking with the artist for now, I walk the entire park, so I see everything that like is available, and then I bought things on my loop back. And there was this artist, and oh gosh, shout out to her. I'm assuming she wouldn't mind. Iris and Pen is her Instagram account. I'm unaware of other accounts, but maybe find those on social media. At least on Instagram for sure. And she had this really cool art of like a monochromatic image of like a frog with some flowers, and like there was some like mushroom growing from the frog's back, and it was super cool. And there was another image, not painting that she had of like, like like the white and black tiger that like you can see anywhere.
Sure.
Like it's the like that like silver tiger with like black stripes running across it as a pattern. So it was like that, except it also had like axolotl spines on the top, like kind of as a mane. And it had like a little fish in its mouth, and it was like on a ledge having just caught this fish, and its like tail eventually like turned into like a fin. It was super cool. And I couldn't decide what to buy from her because I was torn between those two. She had other great art as well. And so as I was being indecisive, we just started talking of like, oh, like, hi, how are you doing? With you? Like, blah, blah, blah. Learned she plays D&D. She normally DMs, stuff like that. I was like, oh my gosh, I play D&D. Recently tried DMing after a few years of not doing it.
But Eric, it went so well last time.
It went so well last time.
Maybe one day we'll tell that story.
Maybe one day, not today. So I eventually decided when you're stuck on a decision, just get both. So I got both.
I agree.
Yeah, it was such a problem solver, let me tell you. And then that's kind of it. That's like part one, and there's a very short part two. Basically, later that night, I learned of a Ren fair that was going to be transpiring Sunday. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, maybe I'll go to that. So as I walked Sunday morning through Forsyth Park, early afternoon, I ran into that artist again, Iris and Pen, and was like, oh my gosh, hello. She was like, oh my gosh, hello. And she was like selling the same art. And I was like, oh, nice to see you. And then she was like, yeah, yeah. And I was like, kept walking. I was like, wait a minute, she's a D&D nerd. I turned around and I was like, do you know about this Ren Fair going on? She was like, oh yeah, it's happening at, whatever location, I forget exactly. And so then she like gave me directions and the exact time, and I was like, cool. And I was like, oh, She was like, yeah, I'm gonna go later after, this. And I was like, oh, cool, like, maybe we'll run into each other. And she was like, yeah, maybe. And I carried along. We did not run into each other.
Oh no.
But she was super cool. She was very friendly. She would, like, made amazing art. She was super nice. Well, just like, a real staple of what you want your small business person to look like.
Okay, so I personally have the opinion that whenever you're traveling long distance, you can always just take into account that something's going to go wrong, like Murphy's Law wise. Like some aspect of traveling, there's gonna be some major inconvenience, some big problem. And when I was a kid, these were always the worst part of the vacation. I'm just like, bro, I want to go where I'm going. I don't want to have to get an oil change halfway down the coast. And then when I was in high school, I was listening to this podcast that does not exist anymore, so I'm not going to give them a shout out. And they were talking about how when you're going through those kind of moments in life where you're like, bruh, I'm cold and it's wet and I just want to go to grandma's house and get some cookies, that in the future, those little disturbances are the things that you actually look back on most fondly. And after hearing this from, this is actually said by one of my favorite YouTubers of all time, his name's Annie Austin, back when he had a podcast. And after hearing that, that has recontextualized to me the sort of annoyance of any sort of transitional period, like waiting in line at the airport or being on a really crowded bus ride. I'm like, you know what? This isn't just me getting somewhere. This is, in fact, a chapter of my life, is me sitting on this stupid, loud, and crowdy, smelly bus from Happy Slappy Town to our neighboring village. So I guess my question's like, okay, whenever I'm doing something in my life, I always stop and ask the question of like, is this what I would call a transitional thing? And if so, what kind of value can I extract from it? So I guess I'm asking you, during your car drive down there in your cool van, were there any annoyances? Were there any road bumps? Did anything happen that looking back, you're like, you know what? I think I'm going to canonically make that an actual feature of the trip as opposed to just like, we had to stop in a dank, dirty bathroom.
Yes and no. It depends. So the person that had to drive down, the big reveal, was my brother. I drove down from Jersey to DC, from DC to South Carolina, from South Carolina to Savannah. That's a long trip. It's a lot of hours. So naturally, at some points, I had to have my I let Jesus take the wheel because in terms of insurance, I and Jesus are on the insured drivers list. Definitely don't let anyone other than the insured drivers drive your vehicles because that could create a lot of problems for you. But everyone believes in Jesus, so I let Jesus take the wheel. And while Jesus was driving, Jesus is a metaphor for someone else.
Jesus might metaphorically be your brother, and we might refer to your brother as Jesus
I didn't say that.
Duration, for the duration of this show.
I did not say it though. If you're listening, Geico, I was a good boy.
Can you prove that Jesus wasn't in the vehicle with me, Geico? Because I believe he's everywhere.
Can you prove it? So I had like tapped out. I was so tired, and I was like, if I continue driving, like our chances are just going to decrease. And so there was two things really, and one happened while Jesus was driving down, and one Jesus was driving up. Not Jesus's fault. One driving down, we were so close. There is like Camp Pedro south of the border. It's a very run down but quirky, cute little almost town, like very similar, slightly similar to Happy Slappyville. It's like clearly one company, but they just bought so much land that like, yes, we have a motel and we have a campground area and we have an arcade and we have a restaurant and we have a gift shop and we have a car wash, and like you could live there potentially. They don't want people to live there though, so yeah. So we were so close to getting that's where we were going to stay for the night. And we were so close. And as we like are off the highway, Jesus is driving, gets off the highway onto that like, weird like little hybrid highway. Like there's still 2 lanes. You're still driving like 50 miles an hour, but like you're not on the highway anymore. And so this 18-wheeler is in the right lane. We're in the left lane. The whatchamacallit, we're like kind of near the back few tires of the 18-wheeler. Like, I don't believe we were in a blind spot. Maybe we were. But so this 18-wheeler begins to like turn left to go into the left lane for whatever exit coming up or whatever. And I'm just kind of like half zonked out because I am tired. Jesus is like also tired and maybe half zonked out himself, and like the 18 I like look up, the 18-wheeler is starting to like get in, like, it starts at the front, so the cab of the 18-wheeler is in the left lane as everything else, and I just shit, and he's like, what? And he like slams on the brakes because it just almost ran into us and like clipped us into like the border, that the concrete dividend that separates north and south driving. And then thankfully the 18-wheeler like finally saw us and was like, oh shit, and course corrected back into the right lane. And we were like, well shit, we almost died. And then thankfully we got there south of the border, everything was fine. We slept, it was good. On the way back, similar thing. I had drove most of the way. Jesus, I let him take the wheel. It was like 90 minutes of driving, maybe 2 hours. And we're on the highway in the left lane. And I don't like Jesus's driving style. Jesus is already dead. So like he will just ascend back into heaven. I won't per se. And Jesus is just a little fast and loose. So I finally get comfortable of Jesus driving for like 20 minutes, and I'm looking at my phone on something. And then I hear ka-chunk, 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 and then like a sound I can't make because the audio Discord will cut it out. But like a tire had blown, and I was like, I just looked at my phone. I don't know. Oh, we're on the. I don't know if I have a spare on me because I might have goofed a little. And we pull off to the left shoulder of the highway because we were in the left lane. We couldn't, there was still a crap ton of cars driving. So we pull over to the left, and I was like, oh my gosh. And Jesus was like, no, don't worry about it. Like, I know what it is. And I was like, wait a minute. What do you mean you know? I get out, and I check all the tires. They're all fine. And Jesus was like, oh, it's this bucket. I was like, what? Sure enough, under the van, there's this bucket, like a 5-gallon construction bucket that is just caught under the van.
No way.
And was making that noise the entire time. And I was like, what? And he was like, it was in the middle of the lane. I couldn't, like, swerve around it. And I was like, okay. I get down on the ground. I take the bucket out. As I take the bucket out, I see where it was caught, right? The top of it was caught on the bottom of the van. And it was so big that part of the bucket was on the road. So for the, like, I don't know, 2,000 feet that it took us to, like, realize what had happened and pull over, the bottom of the bucket had melted because, we were going like 70 miles an hour because it's highway. And it, like, a trail of plastic liquid goo came out, and the bottom of the bucket was like half destroyed. And I was like, holy shit. And then Jesus, and like, thankfully, praise Jesus and any other religious deities or the vibes from the tarot. The bucket had hit just a sheet of metal under the van. Like, I don't fully know the purpose of this sheet of metal other than what I assume is to protect the guts from things like this, or from like water damage, or any other quirky things. So the entire underside of the van perfectly fine except for this one sheet of metal, which I am now designating that it was designed to guard the underside of the van. It's like, oh, thank you. Thank you. And, Jesus, thankfully enough, managed to get us back onto the highway from the left lane, which was also terrifying. And those were the, like, craziest events. That there was one more crazy thing of Jesus and I having miscommunication, because we went to south of the border and we were like, check-ins at 7. We didn't leave until 2. We got there at like 10. We were like, they're not going to accept us. We're going to have to sleep on the road. I don't want to drive. And we just, because the campground office was closed. But then we walked into the motel office and they were open 24 hours. And we were like, yeah, we were waiting for you. And I was like, cool, thank you.
Like, that is that bucket is legitimately an amazing story. And I'm very glad that I asked that, because like that's exactly the kind of story that I don't think you would have ever have like just offered to any of us and just like told anyone in like our group of friends and been like, oh man, one time I was driving and I hit a bucket, or Jesus hit a bucket.
Jesus hit a bucket.
I let Jesus take the wheel and he ran over a construction bucket.
It was the part, and it's so bad because in my head I'm like, if I was driving, I could have swerved and not hit anyone. Which I don't know that I could have. I think it might have. Jesus probably did the best play because it's also a van. It'll tip easy. You don't want to hit another car, but yeah. That was the most freaked out I have been probably driving the van so far. Because especially because like we pulled over in the left lane of the highway. Like, even like if it was a flat tire or something and you had to call someone to like come get you, it's like, hey, come on I-95 somewhere on the left lane.
You can't miss us. It's a smoking van and a liquefied bucket.
You can't first liquefying bucket you'll see on the highway.
Follow the orange trail of goo. Over. I'm just kind of imagining it's an orange Home Depot bucket.
It was black, but
you should have gotten a picture.
Yeah, so I in hindsight, absolutely, but I was just so freaked out and so I was so freaked out and so relieved so quickly. It was crazy, man. It was wild. Yeah, that is my answer to your question.
Thank you for that story. I think that we're going to have to cut it here for the first inaugural episode of
Slapendipity, Hobos of Happy Slappy Town.
Yeah. Next time I could relay some more stories, or I feel a little bad. I feel like I did so much talking. We could get some of your life expertise from your own stories.
That's really funny because I personally think that I spent a lot of time talking.
LOL.
It's good. It's good. We're good. We're good. We're good talkers together. That's why they call us the.
Go on.
Apparently, neither of us can think of anything to say, and that's why they call us the Talkie Boys.
The Talkie Boys. Well, I hope you enjoyed coming into our little home of Happy Slappy Town and getting a little peek inside. But otherwise, we have pharmacy companies to write to and sheets of metal to give little kisses to for doing such a good job. We hope you enjoyed listening to our little excerpt and that sound that I just made as well. If you have any final send-offs, Gibby Devin, you would like to make,
you can always follow me on Twitter at GIBI_Devin. I'm sure at some point we're going to make a Twitter account for whatever we end up calling this. And in the future, if there's any plugs we can give for Eric, who also goes by Eric's social medias or YouTube channels or anything he might potentially do in the future, we can do that then. But as of now, I believe this is your first foray into online content creation. Is that correct?
that is correct. You know, it's an intimidating beast, and I thought, what better way to start than with a friend?
Yeah, you will in the future appear in one of my videos. You actually play Clifford the Big Red Dog.
Yes, Italian style.
Yes. So this
very
is
important.
This is Garfield, who hates Mondays, and Clifford the Big Red Dog, who's Italian, signing off.
Enjoy your weeks, everybody. Watch out for buckets.